What impact on electricity demand can we expect from global warming?
It's a very good question that depends on where you are. If you live in a place where even under a warmer climate, there is little need for cooling, you would expect there to be maybe a little bit of impact in a positive sense that you would consume less electricity because you spend less time heating. It also depends on whether the main source of your heating or cooling is from electricity. Of course, most cooling comes from electricity. So if we speak about hotter parts of the world, Spain, it's nice and warm in the summer. California has some areas that are very hot in the summer. And of course, in the tropics, we would expect if people have high enough incomes to purchase air conditioners or already have purchased air conditioners, they would start using them when it's really hot, and that drives up electricity consumption. For California, where I am from, in the hot parts, everybody owns air conditioners, and we have shown using a nice study using 82% of California's households, where we observed their electricity bills over almost a decade, that if we project forward to the end of century, what the electricity used by households is under climate change, meaning it's going to get warmer, we show that overall electricity consumption from the residential sector, which means people's homes, will rise by about 55%. That, of course, assumes that these appliances aren't more efficient. These appliances are the same size, and then people don't buy more. If people, when it gets hotter, buy more air conditioners, that number may be bigger. If these appliances are more efficient and people don't buy any because they feel like it's the right thing to do to not cool, these numbers could be smaller. It's a very, very difficult problem to study. If we look at China, for example, clearly the world's most populated country, at least for now, what we've seen there is an incredible rate of growth in the number of air conditioners purchased. Today, in the urban areas of some of the richer provinces, the average urban household has 2 air conditioners. This is the average. This is not just the richest. So if you think about what the average rate of penetration of air conditioners in China is today, it is somewhere where the United States were in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and there were lots of air conditioners there. So electricity demand in China during hot periods, for example, is expected to become a lot more peaky, meaning more electricity during hot periods, and also overall consumption, meaning the overall electricity consumed, will be much higher as it gets warmer under climate change.
What should we do policy-wise to improve this situation?
That depends. As an economist, I would clearly argue that if the price is right, which is the popular title of a television show, people will make the right decisions. If we price all externalities, meaning the full cost of electricity consumption, into the price of electricity, meaning all pollution, local air pollutants, as well as the cost of greenhouse gases, then people, in theory, make the right decisions if there are no other market failures. In energy efficiency, there are lots of other market failures, unfortunately. People are maybe boundedly rational. They don't always make the right decisions. They can't process all the information thrown at them, and they buy less efficient things than they should. Or the transactions costs of putting in energy efficient windows or appliances, or in the industrial sector, machineries may be very high. If you have to shut down your factory for 3 months to put in, or 3 days to put in a more efficient piece of machinery, you're losing profits. So maybe it's just not worth putting it in. So I think the first thing we have to do is to properly understand what the barriers are for people to make the right decisions. So there's some more study, but also to make it easier for people to make the right decisions. So labels are a first step for people to make it very easy to understand how much they save if they buy a more efficient appliance. Another step may be to require appliances to be at a certain level of efficiency, so people don't even have a choice here, right? You still get a nice a refrigerator, but it satisfies a certain level of efficiency. We may also want to think about tightening building codes, meaning buildings have to satisfy a certain level of efficiency when they're built. Very inexpensive to do when you build a new building, and if the government requires it, there's an overall level of improvement in energy efficiency. So if I had to pick a few things, I would probably pick appliance standards, labels, and building codes.
Which are the energy efficiency policies that can be more successful?
So that's maybe very similar to what I just said. I think building codes have been shown to improve electricity consumption, meaning lower it over time. In the US, the back of the envelope number here is about 5%, I would say. So those, I think, in the long run are still winners, because a more efficient building is more efficient in the summer when you're trying to keep the heat out. And they're also more efficient in the winter when you're trying to keep the heat in. So building codes, I think, are definitely a winner. And ultimately, I think we're going to have to price energy correctly. If it costs me very, very little to consume energy and electricity, and the cost of that electricity or energy does not reflect the full cost of that resource on society, we tend to overuse. So I'm not arguing we should make it artificially cheaper, artificially more expensive, but we should properly price it so the full social cost of energy is reflected in the price that consumers, industry, and so on pay. Another policy that's clearly very important is thinking about research and development. Spain has been at the forefront of renewable energy, the renewable energy movement. So thinking about how to make these technologies even more cost competitive than they potentially already are is a key aspect. So it's always tricky when you have academics argue for more research, but this is actually engineering research, so I don't gain to benefit anything from it. But thinking more carefully about how we could bring down the costs of these technologies more rapidly is important. It's great if lots of European homes get their energy from renewable sources, but I think where the real frontier is in the developing world. If we're thinking about 1.3 billion people living in China, and if we're thinking about India, which is going to overtake China as the most populated country before long, those are the households we should worry about. And those households will only adopt these renewable sources of energy if they're cost competitive in a real world sense, not just on paper.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.